Think of Norway and what comes to mind. Maybe it's the stunning fjords, the northern lights, or a country where everything just feels perfect. But here's the question. What if that picture-perfect Norway isn't exactly the whole story? What if I told you that there are some things about Norway that most people won't tell you? Things that might make you rethink how you view this Scandinavian paradise. Curious? Well, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you might just be shocked at what you didn't know about Norway. 7. Norway's sky-high prices, not what you expect. Let's talk about the first surprise, the cost of living. Norway is beautiful, but wow, it's expensive. Whether you're grabbing a coffee, buying groceries, or having a simple meal out, be ready to open your wallet wide. A single beer in Oslo can set you back $10. Yes, 10. And don't even get me started on a meal in a restaurant. This is one place where your budget will definitely take a hit. But here's an interesting fact. Norway has one of the highest living standards in the world, and while that's a great thing, it means everything comes with a hefty price tag. Locals are used to it. But as a tourist, well, you'll want to budget wisely. So plan ahead if you want to make the most of your trip without breaking the bank. 6. The polar night, a real dark side. Now on to something that's a bit more unexpected. You've probably heard of the Northern Lights, but how about Norway's polar night? In the northernmost parts of the country, the sun doesn't rise for weeks during the winter months. Sounds cool for a minute, but this means weeks of total darkness. For locals, this is just part of the rhythm of life. But if you're visiting in winter, prepare for the emotional challenge of the long, dark days. Fun fact, in Tromsø, a city above the Arctic Circle, the sun doesn't make an appearance for almost 2 months. That's a lot of darkness to cope with, so it's something to consider before planning a winter trip here. 5. Norwegians, reserved, but not rude. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. You've heard that Norwegians are some of the happiest people on the planet, right? Well, they are, but don't expect them to start chatting with you out of the blue. Norwegians can seem a bit reserved at first, especially if you're used to a more outgoing culture. They're friendly and polite, but they're not big on small talk. I remember when I first visited, I was a little taken aback when no one smiled at me in the streets or tried to make conversation in a cafe. But then, I learned something. Norwegians are super kind once you get to know them. They just don't throw friendliness around casually. It's a cultural thing, kind of like how you wouldn't just start a conversation with a stranger on the subway back home. They value their personal space, and trust me, once you've broken that barrier, you'll see their warmth come through. 4. The eco-friendly oil dilemma. Now here's a little twist. Norway is known worldwide for being eco-conscious, and yes, it's got all the wind farms, electric cars, and nature reserves you can imagine. But here's the catch. Norway is one of the biggest exporters of oil in the world. Wait, what? It's a bit of an odd contradiction, isn't it? The country has worked hard to be green at home, but a huge part of its economy depends on fossil fuels. That's something most people don't talk about. So while you'll definitely experience the beauty of Norway's commitment to sustainability, there's still this hidden side to its economy that some tourists might miss. 3. Norway's weather. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You're probably imagining endless summer days by the fjords, right? It's a great image, but let me tell you, the weather here can be as unpredictable as it gets. Sure, in summer, Norway can be stunning, but in places like Bergen, it rains a lot. On average, it rains more than 200 days a year there. So while you're packing for that sunny vacation, don't forget your raincoat and boots. Trust me, you'll need them. Here's an interesting fact. Bergen is actually one of the rainiest cities in Europe. And even if you visit in summer, don't be surprised if it feels a little chilly. The weather is definitely part of Norway's charm, if you're prepared for it, that is. 2. The struggles of living in a remote paradise. Norway's beauty is one of the world's best-kept secrets, but the flip side of all those breathtaking views is the isolation. In the more remote regions, towns are scattered far apart. This means long drives and limited public transport options. Fun fact, to get from the capital Oslo to the Arctic city of Tromsø, you can spend up to 16 hours traveling. If you're visiting, you'll need to plan your journey carefully. Many tourists come expecting to hop from one beautiful destination to the next with ease, but that's not always the case. You can spend a good chunk of your time just getting from one place to another, especially in the more rural areas. 1. Norway's rules. You won't see them coming. Lastly, let's talk about something you might not even notice at first. Norway has rules. And when I say rules, I mean everything from public transportation to littering. The truth is, Norway is a country of contrasts, stunning natural beauty mixed with hidden challenges. But that's exactly why it's so fascinating. Click any of these videos on the screen and I'll see you in a moment.